We should talk about like what the heck meditation actually is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of definitions, and I think meditation is sort of an umbrella term that encompasses any kind of contemplative, quiet time that you spend with yourself, with your attention drawn inward. So instead of thinking about the past or the future or analyzing and really putting the brain to work with our thoughts, instead bringing ourselves into the present moment. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But and those different ways are called meditation. And it is like a Buddhist tradition. So I do want to mention just where this comes from, the idea of meditation. However, like if you have a hobby, like, for example, or a sport that you play where you are in the zone or in a flow state, that's actually a form of meditation. And if they were to put like electrodes on your brain, like your brain waves would look similar to those of somebody meditating, sitting quietly and meditating. So kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if we're in such a world of multitasking that this idea of focusing on one thing seems both needed and really like overwhelming and almost like a waste of time. Like, why do this one thing when I can be doing like 7 things at once? I mean, listening to a podcast while I respond to emails, while I do yada,
well, I
yada.
think it's definitely like a reflection of our, this kind of hustle culture and this like the currency of busyness and how that gives us this feeling that we're very important and needed and valued, because look at all the stuff on my calendar, all the things on my to-do list, like look how important I am, that this is all the stuff that I have to get to. And there is something about, like I said, with meditation, it's so simple. Like you don't need to buy anything. You don't need anything. And I think for some people, it's just not, seems almost mundane, or like, how could this possibly make an impact? Because it just seems almost too simple in a way, but also overwhelming, right? It's this funny kind of paradox.
But it does have a lot of like proven benefits. What did I read? There was a book, I think it was called Buddha's Brain, which kind of goes over the science connected with meditation. Another great book, if you're a meditation skeptic, is 10% Happier, because that's from the point of view of somebody that was not into meditation and kind of like their journey into it. And he's got a podcast and a meditation app now as well. So I really enjoyed that book. Did you read that one?
I don't think I read the book. I did. I'm going to put that in the comments. 10% Happier. So yeah, that's a podcast. And I guess I didn't even know it was a book, but
it started as a book, and he has a meditation app too. We're going to talk about meditation apps too. What were some of the benefits that you came across, Justine, when you were doing your research?
The most robust data is around easing symptoms of depression, anxiety, and chronic pain, which is very interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you can Google it, and so many things are going to come up around what people report. And that's not hard data, but things like greater compassion for oneself and others, less self criticizing, so less negative self-talk is a really big one. Reduce stress reduction, better sleeping, all of those are reported.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I said, that sense of compassion was definitely good, because you might do loving kindness meditation. We talk about the different kinds, and in that you will include yourself. And you just start to think of those nice thoughts about people you know, and that kind of carries over to yourself. I also think just generally like noticing things around you, like when you're outside and stuff, that would be something that came from it for me, where I'd just be like, oh, like, the sky looks nice. Like maybe things that I would have just like had my head down and been walking, and just start to be a little more aware of your surroundings and what's going on in the present more. And then maybe a greater sense of gratitude too.
Yeah.
Which I think helps with your overall, like, that can help with depression.
Yeah, those are really good examples. And I mean, what it really comes down to is this like awareness that we start to cultivate that can be really beneficial. And I did want to point out a few misconceptions around meditation, things that might prevent somebody from trying it because they're like, I don't know. And so one of them is the idea of clearing the mind of all thoughts. And that's like, if you're meditating correctly, then you're not going to have thoughts. And I actually had this experience in my 20s when I first started. Meditation just wasn't explained very well to me. And I just wasn't, I didn't have the correct resources. And so it was actually a really painful sort of experience because, go ahead, Mugs, because I really felt like a failure when I tried to meditate, because I thought if I was like focusing on my breath hard enough that I literally wouldn't have any thoughts. And so now I understand that that's not how it is. And we'll talk a little bit more in detail later about that. But that was a major hindrance for me because I was like, I suck at this. Like, what's wrong with my brain? I'm having so much trouble just focusing on my breath, and all these thoughts keep coming up. But of course, that's not the purpose of meditation, is not to stop your thoughts. And even incredibly experienced meditators have thoughts and might even get swept away in a thought during their meditation practice.
It's such a nice way to let go of perfectionism, because there's no like winning at meditation. Like,
Yes.
And I think that's part of it, is the perfectionism. Yes. It's like, oh, well, I can't, my mind's too busy, I'm not going to even try this. And it's like, oh, well, you're probably somebody that needs this. If that's the case. I had always thought that I had to sit cross-legged on the floor, and like, it's, if a lot of people meditate in the morning, and I'm like, I don't want to be on the cold floor in the morning, and maybe I don't really want to sit super upright, like you have to have really good posture, and so like I just started like laying back on a pillow and listening to a guided meditation. And it's like, you can do it however you want. You don't have to be in this preordained position.
Yeah, such a great point, because I think people really think they need to sit on the floor. And for a lot of people, that is just so uncomfortable, or maybe even not possible. One of the ways that I really like the description is to just sit in a way that allows you to stay alert. So like, you can lie down, but try just not to be in a way that you're going to fall asleep, which is maybe fine, but you can't meditate while you're sleeping. But maybe you need to have a little nap, and that's fine too, but just a way that you can be alert. And also, another misconception is that it needs to have this spiritual or like religious component to it, which is not accurate, especially like the concentration meditation techniques are really not like that. And you can certainly practice meditation as an atheist or agnostic, or it doesn't have, or maybe you are religious, but you don't want to bring that into your meditation. That's fine. Like you can still reap all of the benefits from the meditation without that component.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So I'm going to go over a few different types of meditation, and then we will get into some steps on how to get started. Broke these down a little bit. So we've got like the kinds of concentration meditations. This can be something like focusing on your breath, using a mantra. So that's just kind of saying the same words over and over again. Counting. So that's one of my favorites, is counting.
Oh, that's been
in and out.
That's actually been huge for sleep for me when I fall asleep.
Counting sheep.
Yeah, basically. I mean, I it sounds really tedious, but I count backwards from 1,000.
Wow. How far do you make it normally?
Sometime into the 700s.
That's pretty good. And this is also where Jen's mentioned the body scan meditation, which was be under this kind of concentration meditation. And that really has to do with like honing our focus. And we can think about focus and concentration as a muscle. So just like if you wanted to like get stronger biceps, like you can think about like every time you do that bicep curl, like that's your rep. Every time your mind wanders away from whatever it is you're concentrating on, let's say it's the breath, that's your opportunity for a rep right there. Is like when you bring the brain, the mind, and the attention back to the breath, you just flexed that concentration muscle. So I always tell my yoga teacher, class participants that, because I'm like, it's a good thing, like, because then you got that opportunity to strengthen that muscle. And then we have mindfulness meditations. This is a little bit broader in the sense of it's more about noticing and awareness and observation without judgment. So this could be like an open awareness meditation, which I think I actually did one of these that's in our YouTube channel. So this is more like noticing your thoughts and not getting swept up in them, but just note, or maybe noticing your feelings or noticing your physical sensation or your emotions. It's a little bit looser than the concentration where we're like really honing in. And this is a little bit more like what Jen was talking about when it comes to that benefit of bringing that awareness into your everyday life and say like,
oh my God, yeah. And it can help you not hold on to your feelings so tightly and not hold on to negative thoughts as much. You can just be like, oh, that's a negative thought. Like,
exactly.
and
And
so
not identifying, which Jen does a great job of bringing that up with the intuitive eating stuff that we do with clients, is like, we have this idea that we are the feeling, or like we are this, and this kind of mindfulness meditation really helps us to disidentify and just notice how these things are this feeling is temporary. And I am not this feeling, I'm having this feeling, or I'm experiencing it. A metaphor that is used oftentimes is the idea of being a mountain, and that feelings are the weather that go by, so like you wouldn't say like the mountain is rain, it's just like, oh, it's raining over the mountain, and then it's not. So that's kind of a nice lot of visual metaphors for that.
Unless it's January in Vermont, and apparently it just rains forever. We are the rain.
We are rain. And then the last one I want to mention is movement meditation. Now, there are probably people out there like the idea of sitting still, like I can't, this just makes me so anxious. I get that. So really understand that. So there is a lot movement meditations, walking, and we'll talk about some apps and stuff, but there's some great walking meditation apps specifically, Tai Chi, and that's the only ones I have. I think like Qigong is another one that, but really like probably you can do all kinds of movement art. Like there's like art meditation probably.
I'm sure. Yeah. Anything. And we're going to get into how to get started. And one of the app that I've most used, is, what app they use? Headspace. And they have a lot of different kinds of meditation in there. The first thing to know is all of these apps that you sign up for are going to give you a 5 to 10 day introduction. They're going to teach you some of these skills. They're going to talk about, it's not just silence or weird music. There's going to be somebody in your ears guiding you so that you know what to do. And that is really nice. It's not just like a timer that'll go off after.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, which is one of I should have had that on the list, which is a guided meditation, right? So there's a difference between, again, if the idea of sitting silently in a room, just trying to focus on your breath freaks you out, which is, I get it. That's a great time to bring in that guided meditation where you're going to have somebody talking you through the experience. So you're not going through it just on your own. Let's get into some concrete ways to start. I would say, I'm going to back up Jen here. I think an app is a great way to start because, like Jen said, there's a variety of different kinds of meditation to choose from. And you have the support of like the expert or whoever designed the app. And there are many good ones. Insight Timer is another great one. And I do believe there's a free, so Insight Timer and Headspace do cost money monthly. One that is not, that is free is UCLA Mindful. So
Nice.
this is actually created by the Mindful Awareness Research Center, and it's free. So you can get that through their website, and I can actually put that, I'll put that in the comments. Another one is Calm. So there's a lot to choose from. And I definitely recommend if you've never, or you're just a beginner and you want to start a consistent habit, to start with an app. And what probably will happen is, or might happen for some of you, is you'll find one you like, and then you realize, kind of like workouts, right? You're like, maybe I could do this on my own, and maybe, you eventually you don't use the app, or you do it on your own and you use the app as a combination.
Yeah, I've also used a lot of Tara Brock's free ones.
Yes,
on her
so
website.
good.
She has a bunch of free ones that are
Love
good.
her.
And yeah, the Headspace one has like things for that happen in your life. Like if you have just like something that's really upset you, they might have like a 3-minute like SOS meditation to do. And that's something that we didn't talk about in misconceptions. And that's about like the amount of time you need to spend doing it.
Yeah.
And once again, it doesn't need to be 15-30 minutes. I had kind of started with like 5 minutes, and 10 minutes is pretty doable for me. But it can be very little. And then once again, try not to be a perfectionist. If you miss a day, you don't need to start over on Monday. You don't need to start over at the beginning of the next month. Just do it tomorrow if you have time, just keep going on.
Yeah. And I would argue even like 3 minutes when you first start is really fine. Depending on the kind of meditation that you're doing, you could even break up 2-3 minutes and do it more than once in the day, depending on what your days look like. But consistency truly is the key to I don't want to say like seeing results, but is the key to experiencing the more subtle changes that can come from a practice like Jen was mentioning, where there's this space that you didn't know was there between things happening and your reaction to those things. And meditation helps us to grow that space. And within that space is where we have choices and how we're going to react, how we're going to move forward in situations. And I think that's been one of the greatest benefits for me, is that realizing that there was a space there and growing that space. And consistency is important. That's why it's so important to just really, really tiny bite size pieces of this at a time. Because if you're going to say, I'm going to jump in, let's do 15 minutes, like 15 minutes is actually really
that's going to feel
time.
like a long time. I did find that 5 with guided doesn't feel too long, but 3 is fine.
Yeah. So managing expectations here is really important. So this is not like a quick fix solution. However, like Jen said, if you're feeling really wound up, sitting quietly and just taking some breaths is actually probably going to be really, really helpful on a really basic, like just your nervous system being able to quiet down a little bit. There's a reason why we sigh or like take big breaths in stressful situations, especially after they're over. Like you might find you're like, woo, right? Like we don't really do that on purpose. Like there, and you'll see animals do it too. And that's really to like, to soothe, to self-soothe. So yeah, just managing expectations about like, why are you wanting to do this? And then making sure that we're not bringing in that perfectionist tendency, saying like this, it needs to look this way or else I'm doing it wrong. There's really no way to F up to F up your meditation practice.
Yes, that's such a good point. And I think a lot of people want to do meditation because they might struggle to fall asleep or fall back asleep when they wake up. And I don't know that meditation will be like a quick fix or a solution, but it could be part of a multi-tier solution for the sleep thing. So even if you're like adding meditation and you don't necessarily feel like it's helping with the sleep, like give it some time and then add whatever other things that you find helpful with that, whatever other sleep hygiene things you need to do. Do you need to do a brain dump and write all your stuff you need to do the next day in a journal, like all that other stuff too? It just can be like part of the puzzle for that.
That's such a great point. It's just added to that constellation of self-care pieces in your life. So yeah, so we've got, to get started, highly recommend an app. But if you would like to just be doing this on your own, the most simple kind of meditation practice is a concentration meditation practice that uses the breath as an anchor into the present moment. And we use the breath because it is consistent. It's always with us, right? Like that's it. That's really the only reason, is that if you're alive, you're breathing. And so it's such a consistent, easy thing to just utilize that's always available to us. So this literally is like three to four steps long. So finding a comfortable position where you feel alert. So that's just number one. You're going to find a position, whether seated, lying down, whatever. And then closing your eyes. Now, even this has options. Sometimes people don't want to close their eyes, and that's fine. Find either a relaxed position of the eyelids. You're looking out in front of you with a soft gaze, right? So you don't want to be looking around, right? So just focus on something out in front of you that's not moving. And then make no effort to change your breathing, right? So the first thing we're like, oh, should I like do something? I mean, if you want to take a few deep breaths, that's okay. But really just allow the breath to just be natural. And then focus your attention on some part of the breath. This could be the sound. It could be the feeling of the breath, where it is in your body, in your belly or your chest or your throat. It could be the feeling at the tip of your nose, the way if you're breathing in and out through your nose, it's going to be cool on the way in and warm on the way out, maybe. You're just going to find one point, right, about the breath that you can focus in on. And then you're going to just do your best to maintain your focus on your breath. And every time you notice that your mind has wandered, which it will, you just bring it back to the breath. And you do that again and again and again and again. And that is your meditation practice, right? And you can set a timer. Yeah, you can set a timer too.
Pro.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, we don't want to dread the mind wandering. It's like, we know it's going to happen. And we talk about this so much in our intuitive eating coaching, which is like, be interested and curious about this happening, right? It's not like, oh shit, my mind wandered. Like, we have a brain, the brain thinks it's like the most natural thing in the world. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with you, so instead be like, oh, like, hello, like, come back here, and just having that sense of refocusing. If you want to do your meditation in community, you don't want to do it by yourself. Check out yoga studios in your area and see what they're offering, because there are definitely meditation groups that some of you might enjoy too. Yeah, cool. Well, I'm going to put some of this information into the comments. If you have any tips for starting meditation, if it's part of your practice, your self-care practice, definitely share what motivates you to do it, and any tips for people who are wanting to start.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, everybody.
Week we will talk about strength training.
Strength training. I sound like Sean Connery. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week.